Okay. It is 6:18 or 19, somewhere in that range. It is December 15th. This is the regular city council meeting. If you do roll call, Ryan,
Mayor Pro Tem Wellman,
here.
Counselor Stepp, Counselor Hershey,
Present.
Counselor Dem,
Yes.
Counselor Wusso. We have a quorum.
Just for the public's knowledge, the mayor is homesick with COVID. He was going to try to do a remote, but I don't think he felt well enough to do that. And Ms. Kaup is on vacation, so that's why they're not here tonight. Are there any agenda changes or conflicts? None? Okay. Any announcements from council? I have several that Bree wants me to make, but any other announcements? Okay. The community center, South Canyon Landfill and Recycle Center will be closed on Saturday, December 24th, and City Hall is closed January 2nd. Second announcement, we're going to have a free New Year's Eve family celebration at noon as December 31st. I'm sorry, from 11 to 2 p.m. There'll be a noon countdown, a 600 balloon drop in the gym. Your family will love celebrating the new year in a spectacular way at the Glenwood Springs Community Center. Kids will have a blast at the noon 600 balloon drop in the gymnasium, enjoy ice skating, climbing wall, and swimming during the entire event. A band will be playing kids' music while the 25-foot aerialist act performs in the gym. Experience the joy of super fiesta, bouncy houses, movies, fairies doing face painting, balloon animals, magic acts, and an art project where you can make your own New Year's Eve ball. Bundle up outside for rides in a one-horse open carriage. And you can submit your New Year's resolutions on site for a chance to win prizes. This is a free event for all people in the community. We hope the families and their children can come out. We're doing this earlier in the day to allow for the active family participation. Also on New Year's Eve, there's going to be live music under the bridge at the Bethel Plaza. Excuse me, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Please come enjoy that as well and experience downtown food, shopping, festivities. If you haven't done so already, probably to make a reservation at a restaurant because there won't be many available on New Year's Eve. Third announcement, January 5th, which is our first meeting in January. We're going to have a meet and greet the 3 city council, city manager finalists. We're going to hold an early council meeting. We're going to, I think, start at 4 and we'll be done by the 6 o'clock event. It's going to be at the community center. When we did it a few months ago, there was not a lot of community members. A couple of people here I know were there. I think it's really important for you to come out and give council feedback on what you think of the 3 finalists. So I'm encouraging the public to please show up and attend that. There's an announcement today that the draft comprehensive plan update is now available for public comment. It goes to this, that will next go to the Planning Zoning Commission for review and then later to the City Council. The comment deadline is Friday, January 6th. There are links to the draft plan and comment form on the homepage of the city's website. That's at cogs.us. And then finally, save the date for the community conversation about traffic demand management on Tuesday, January 10th at the community center, 6 p.m. There'll be more information coming out from a press release at a later time. There's some movie I watched. I saw some guy making all these announcements. I felt like I was doing that movie. All right. So those are all the announcements that we have. Citizen appearing before council. Laurie, I know you were on the list.
Thank you, Cherry. Lori Chase, 705 Cowden Drive, and I'm here to say thank you for finally taking care of my neighbor's trash problem. It only took 2 weeks of constant oiling the squeaky wheel, but it did get done. And let's see. Oh yeah, I just parked over in the handicap spot right over there in front of the courthouse, and there was a lot of snow there, and it was really dangerous for me, a handicapped person, to try to walk through that. So maybe if the city people could kind of take a little extra special care for the people that hobble around this town. And thank you very much for all the work you do.
Thank you for coming
Happy
in
holidays.
and telling us it works. So thank you.
Happy holiday.
Anybody else? These are for matters not on the agenda. Okay, seeing none?
Do we have anybody online?
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Carl. Are there any people online that want to speak in their citizens' comments? No, I'm seeing no. Okay, all right. Mr. Hershey.
I would like to make a motion, Mr. Mayor,
Please do so.
to approve the consent agenda. Please.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Marco. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, it's 4-1, passes. Ryan, how do you put the minutes that Tony voted no on that? Do you just make a note of that or?
Yeah.
Okay,
Slight
all right,
with every
okay,
motion.
sorry. Ms. Golay, anything else you want to say? Thank you for all your hard work on the Loba Trail. We really appreciate it. So getting the extra grant, all that stuff's really appreciated. So. Okay. Okay, thank you for being here. Item number 6 is Downtown Development Authority appointment. Mark, you want to handle that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, if I may, I'd like to move that we appoint Kevin Floor to the DDA as of immediately.
He will be replacing Greg Keller.
That's correct.
Finish his position.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay. I will comment, if you saw in the packet, there was also an application from another individual. Turned out that individual, because it doesn't live in the district, the DDA is going to have a discussion about that at their next meeting and determine if they're going to amend their bylaws that would allow that person to apply and be appropriate for the area, because there's some other connections with the DDA. So with that, I guess call the question.
Do we need a,
Yeah,
just call it, or we're
Yeah.
gonna vote for real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm way down here. I can't hear anything.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman, yes. Counselor Wusso, yes. Counselor Dem, yes. Counselor Step, yes. Counselor Hershey, yes. It passes unanimous.
the next matter on the agenda is ordinance number 22-30. An ordinance of the City of Council of the City of Glenwood Springs to amend the 2022 budget appropriation. This is where they're making the adjustments for the year. Steve, do you want to comment on this?
Good evening, council. I don't really have anything to say. This is just housekeeping at the end of the year. We basically take money out of the appropriation for projects that we're not doing, primarily in capital funds like capital projects, A&I, fire equipment replacement, and then we readjust our revenue forecasts to bring them up to our current forecast.
Okay, and those are all listed in the council memo. Is there any public comment on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for a motion or questions.
I'll make a motion to pass the ordinance. Hold on one second. Let me pop it back open. Ordinance 2022-30 and ordinance of the City Council of the City of Glenwood Springs to amend the 2022 budget appropriation. And this is the first reading.
Second.
And just for everybody's benefit, it is one reading on appropriation ordinances underneath our charter.
Any other comments? Call the question.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman, yes. Counselor Wusso, yes. Counselor Dem, yes. Counselor Step, yes. Counselor Hershey, yes. It passes unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve, and get well.
Thanks, everybody.
Item number 8, ordinance 2020-22-31, code amendments regarding landscaping, screening, fencing, et cetera. Hannah.
Et cetera. I want to get into the et cetera.
Let's see here. Just pulling up a quick presentation. Make sure that's being shared. Okay, that looks better. Excellent. I am going to try and keep my voice tonight, so you guys should do most of the talking. And the questions. Interpretive dance is answers. That's fine, right? So this is a proposed, I always forget to introduce myself. Hannah Klausman, Acting Director for Community Development. Nice to see you all, council, or most of council at least.
Nice to be back in person.
Yes, it is nice to be back and not floating over your head. So this is a code amendment to Title 70 in regards to landscaping standards. A little bit of the background. This has been a long time coming. I've been working on this for approximately 2 years, and it's just it's a labor intensive code amendment from staff perspective, but this has gone through Planning and Zoning Commission work session where it originated. Then staff was able to bring it back to Planning and Zoning Commission for a recommendation. That actually happened in March. As part of this review, we've had numerous model and jurisdictional code examples that staff did review. There's actually a lot of that out there from Northwest COG, which we are a member of, and numerous jurisdictions in the valley, outside of the valley, across the state. So I did want to highlight that fact that there are a lot of examples, which is great when we're rewriting code that we don't have to invent the wheel. Planning and Zoning Commission gave a very thorough review, as they are wont to do, with these code standards. I think it was a 2.5-hour discussion. So just to let you know on the work that they put in. And through this process, staff has had numerous meetings with our Parks and Recreation Department, as well as other landscape architects and experts in this field. Obviously, not every expert in this field has been consulted, but there have been multiple public hearings and opportunities to comment on the proposal. So the main basis of these landscape principles that we're proposing tonight are centered around xeriscape principles. And there are 7 principles involved. I like to call this up because a lot of times, and before I got into the landscape architect industry 2 years ago, I didn't exactly know what that meant. So a lot of people hear the word xeric and think rock gardens, which is absolutely not the case. So there are best management practices for landscaping that are aimed at water conservation, but still landscaping, still plants, still grasses, still gardens. So water conservation design is at the top, soil improvement and amendments, appropriate use of turf, use of native low water use plants, mulch, irrigation, and maintenance is what this is centered around. And staff has taken those principles and incorporated new sections into our existing landscape code to get at the water conservation design. I love spreadsheets. So this is tiny writing, but we have a spreadsheet comparing all of the municipal jurisdictions and model codes so that we could see what everyone was doing in regards to those 7 categories that I just mentioned. There is some variation across the board, but predominantly everyone's on the same page. So I wanted to go over the exact proposed code amendments. This is a little intensive as far as landscape goes. But a little bit before we do that, Planning and Zoning Commission did have some things that they recommended in their review that staff has incorporated, including something that they call guerrilla water. So it's the overwatering and inefficient water enforcement component of this. So there's excessive pooling, overspray when someone is watering their sidewalk as opposed to anything else. I think we've all seen examples of this in our community. They wanted something that could really, in this new landscape code, address some of those issues and encourage more efficient irrigation. So staff has included that. They also wanted an exemption for vegetable gardens to not be counted in certain landscape percentage regulations. And also a very, very long discussion on the applicability of these standards to single family and duplex. In our current code, single family and duplex uses are exempted from a large section of our landscape code. So staff has gone through and and identified the areas that they would still be exempt from, which are some sections, but the majority of what we're adding tonight would apply to single family and duplex uses. So that is something that is new that I wanted to point out. Something that came out of Planning and Zoning Commission that staff just couldn't get across the finish line, but wants to point out, and is something we're still working on, is the Firewise landscape integration. We really wanted to get this moving a little bit faster, and that was taking longer. We fully intend to bring that forward, and we've had conversations with our own fire chief as well on how to do that. I believe it takes more time. So we're recommending a review and incorporation of that within 6 months. And that was something that Planning and Zoning Commission also wanted done. So that was Planning and Zoning Commission. From the Parks and Recreation Department, that has been incredibly helpful. And we do have some amazing staff with them. Heather Listerman, if you didn't know, is a qualified water efficient landscaper. So she got that certification. 2 of them actually got that certification up in Aspen. So she had some great feedback when she reviewed this. And we did incorporate some changes from Parks and Rec, and Dan Roper has also been extremely beneficial in reviewing this code. So we took the term native species, which is used a lot, was pointed out that climate adaptive species, which are species which might not necessarily be native to our region, but are climate adapted to our region and have the same benefits as native species, and also add to a more diverse plant availability in our plant lists. So that was one of theirs. Also some language regarding how trees get planted. Parks pointed out that in some developments, when trees get planted, they're kept in their burlap sacks. You've probably seen that when they're traveling down I-70. Best practices is actually to remove that before planting. So they've seen, from their perspective, they've seen a lot of trees die off because of that planting tactic. So we've included that as well. And then the one thing that's not incorporated to code, I'll say this to you and then we'll get to the exact sections. It came from a recommendation from Parks and Rec, is consideration of a maximum size for downtown core streets located in planting strips. And they suggested a maximum size of 35 feet. So that's mature height, that's mature canopy, to avoid some structural complications with sidewalks and some large tree removal that we've had to do. Specifically, there were some examples along Grand, large tree removals that were posing safety risks, and removing them became an incredible challenge. So something for you guys to think about. If that's something that you're interested in adding, it would need to be added to this language tonight. Okay, so the actual code amendments, I'll try and go through these fairly quickly, but I want to make sure you know what we're doing here. So we've added something to the purpose statement about extending water supply and water infrastructure. Obviously, that is one of the core tenets behind what we're doing tonight, given the history with City of Glenwood Springs Water in the last couple of years and what we've been actively doing with public works and trying to make that more efficient. And down into the applicability, I mentioned, as you see here, single and 2-family residential uses, except for certain sections. So they're exempt except for, you can see the 70-40-50 C3, which is the new section on water efficient landscape standards. There's that. This is the language that Parks and Rec proposed, removing the trees from their ball and burlap, as it's called, when they're planted, so that doesn't impede their growth and sustainability. This is the bulk of what we're talking about tonight. This is a completely new section. It's all double underlined. This is the water efficient landscape standards that incorporates all of those 7 categories of the xeric landscaping. So we have the soil amendment here, which has percentages and depth requirements, mulch being applied at minimum depths as well, plant selection and grouping. Oops. So we have incorporated lists that Parks and Recreation Department has created that include water-wise recommendations on plants and plant lists. The creation of hydro zones. So this is the idea that you're grouping similar water use plants into specific areas to be more efficient in landscaping. So my landscape architecture knowledge is limited, but not putting a tomato next to thyme because you'll kill the thyme because it's overwatered. And if you underwater the tomato, that's also going to die. So it's a smart way of grouping your plants so that you can water them to their need and not overwater certain things. And then we also have the preserve native and climate adaptive species, as I mentioned, and a percentage native species shall account for 75% of provided plants as identified in those lists. Within those hydrozones, we do have a limit on high water use zones. So if you come in with a landscaping plan, your high water use zones that you identify on it need to be limited to no more than 50% of the total landscaped area. There is some additional language for turf grass areas designated as functional turf. I included the definition of functional turf in your staff report. That would be an application for functional turf and something that our city Parks and Recreation Department would also have to apply and show that it meets the definition of functional turf, which has some area calculations as well as showing that it's a high use or a recreational amenity to the community. So that's kind of an exemption from the high water use zones. As you know, our ball fields use a high water use grass. It is more durable for the amount of use that those recreation areas get. So they would need to show that that meets that specific criteria. Then we also have where high water use zones can go, a limit on planting them on a slope, which watering on slopes is inefficient, allegedly, according to landscape architects that have been my advisors for the last 2 years. Item F, I will highlight this one, turf. And this is probably the most sensitive item in this entire code update. Very high and high water use turf grass is prohibited. The lists that we provide do provide alternatives to a high water use turf grass. The reason why staff didn't specifically identify an example such as Kentucky bluegrass is there's more than just Kentucky bluegrass that is high water. But there are a lot of other options to choose from in grass species that do not require that much water. This is something that has been adopted across the board, so I understand it might be a contentious topic, but know that this is not something that we flippantly included. It's a best management practice as far as landscape code updates when you're looking at water-wise activity. And there's a little bit of information on the high water use functional turf, what needs to be submitted to the Community Development Department to get approval for that. And finally, a different section of our code, 70-70-30, all other terms defined. We have added some definitions, including functional turf, so that these new components are listed there. Irrigation system design. This is also another bulk piece that people would be interested in. Move this out of the way so I can see my notes here. So this is really aimed at making irrigation systems more efficient with soil moisture sensing devices. The landscape plan indicating how they need to submit that plan with the location and specifications of the irrigation system so that community development can review those. And an irrigation system that correlates to the hydro zones that I mentioned before. So as an example of this, to make it a little bit more user-friendly, we're all familiar with how turf grass is watered. It's the spray sprinklers. Spray sprinklers are highly inefficient if you're watering low water use plants. A subsurface drip line is actually what's more efficient. So you can see that we've included that here. Any areas that are not in your high water use zones need to have a different type of irrigation installed. And you can see the low volume drip or subsurface irrigation systems are used or shall be used in the following conditions. Any landscape areas where one dimension is less than 6 feet in width and surrounded by impervious surfaces, and then in all non-turf grass areas. So really getting to a more efficient watering mechanism. I think we've all seen, and I know community development has received complaints throughout the years of my neighbor is watering the road or the sidewalk, or there's a sprinkler that is literally watering a parking lot and it's not watering anything else. So this is really aimed at making developers design their irrigation system to avoid those types of inefficiencies. And then we've included in item G on the possibility of enforcement side to give this a little bit more teeth. Leaks, runoff, overspray is prohibited. Irrigation systems shall be designed to prevent these types of water waste and any drainage of water onto paved or unplanted surfaces, and included some enforcement mechanism. After consulting with legal, we may need to change the section, the enforcement section that we're referencing here. So that could be one change that we would clarify on second reading. But enforcement is possible in our general code enforcement section that community development uses now. So these are the criteria for you to review tonight for any code amendment, which you are the final authority on. The criteria are the proposed code amendments, whether they are and to what extent consistent with the comprehensive plan and other city policies. So the comprehensive plan goals, I've listed them here. This is the current comprehensive plan. It also is compatible with what is coming down the line, and actually probably more compatible with the proposed comprehensive plan, which you guys will be seeing soon. Promoting long-term sustainable diverse economic development, preserving natural resources. Does not conflict with other provisions of the code. It does not. Is necessary to address a demonstrated community need. So what I've listed here, proposed amendments are necessary to address community need for water conservation and drought resiliency. Resiliency is a big word here in adopting these code standards in light of substantial changes in climate and city water infrastructure needs. And is necessary to respond to substantial changes, would be the same, and is consistent with, this is getting in my way, general purpose and intent of this code. So those are your criteria in making an approval or denial or continuance as you are able to do. Staff is recommending approval of the code text amendments, and so is Planning and Zoning Commission. The suggested findings, which I've included here on this slide, but are also included on page 5 of the Planning and Zoning Staff Report, which is part of your packet, are here, and the suggested findings that I just went over. So with all of that information, I will turn it over to you with questions. Also able to respond to some citizen comments that were submitted to council. I've reviewed those and have answers at the ready.
Ingrid?
I have two quick questions. One is, why did we limit it or exclude homes that were 5,000 square feet or less on lots? That's, I think, page 2. I'm looking at this.
Yes, and that's in the existing code.
Okay.
It's not something that is changing. I can't actually speak to the intent behind that.
Yeah. I just feel like all these same limitations should apply, regardless of your lot size. And I think that could actually be removed. And I think it would keep it cleaner only because then enforceability becomes unilateral.
Definitely something for consideration. So
Okay.
what Ingrid is talking about is in the applicability section. So what our landscaping code currently and what these new standards would apply to. There's the exemption that I covered on single and 2-family residential uses, except for specific sections. And then item B, mixed use or non-residential uses on a lot that is less than 5,000 square feet shall be exempt from this section. So this isn't applying to residential uses, it's commercial and mixed uses.
Mhm.
And I honestly can't speak to the intent behind the small lot other than perhaps making a non-residential use work with the landscaping standards on such a limited area is
Yeah.
challenging. So they were trying to apply some flexibility. But
Okay.
that's just my opinion.
And can you see any concern with removing that? Or do you want to ruminate on that?
Let me ruminate.
Okay, do
but
some
come back
rumination.
to it
Okay, that's perfect.
tonight.
Totally. And then my second question is it, and maybe this is, I don't know who even to ask this question to, but can we share this with the gardening centers like Lowe's, Big John's? is it possible to disseminate it to them just so that simply they're playing by the same rules and potentially selling a grass seed that is drought tolerant and, all just kind of playing well together?
Absolutely. And that was something that was discussed in the lead up to this of
Okay.
letting the stores know,
Great.
hey, we prohibit, if this were to pass,
Yeah.
we prohibited this seed mix. You might, pass it along to clients.
Yeah, it's great. And then before I pass on or to, let somebody else, Hannah, thank you so much. 2 years is a long time to keep this in your books. Thank you for all the hard work you put into it. It's really nicely presented and very thorough.
I do want to say at one of your work sessions, Charlie said 13 months is like the ideal. So I'm sticking to the plan, Charlie.
Paul.
Hannah, I'm going back to the single family and duplex. Is that only regarding new developments, or if somebody was changing their irrigation system, or where do you fall in the grandfathered part of it?
Excellent question. So item C under applicability does address this very question. And this is what we have in our current landscaping standards. So we're not proposing to change the threshold at which this is triggered. So of course, any new development that is required to submit a landscape plan, expansion of existing structures or uses by less than 25% gross floor area, provided that any existing compliant landscape remains unaltered. So you would have to be changing your gross floor area more than 25% before this kicks in.
Okay. And that gets back to talking to our local stores and stuff. And somebody's redesigning their front yard, which I did recently, and it's like, oh, well, I need to get some plants, and you go down there. Would they then be kind of stuck to whatever that with these regulations pertain, or that's already in
No.
use? So
Yeah.
not that I
So
would do
really
that.
this is aimed at capturing, it's not going to be everywhere, right? And it would be a slow progression, but
Yeah.
I think what we've seen is there are some landscaping companies that are very savvy with this and are already adopting Zurich principles. So new development, obviously, and large like apartment complexes and things that we're seeing come in, their landscaping standards are going to need to meet this large commercial development. But unless you remodel the use that you have on your land over 25%, this wouldn't kick in. If you are, then we'd want to take a look and you'd be required to come up to the landscaping code.
Okay, thanks.
When you said remodel over 25%, do you mean you're adding 25% to the floor area, or you're remodeling 25% of the
This
existing?
actually does say expansion. of
Okay, that's what I
existing
thought you said at
structures. So
first.
interior remodeling, that would not apply.
Okay. Any other questions? And I have two things. And one, I noticed as part of the current code that the setback on trees is 4 feet from the curb. And a lot of the existing berms between the street and the sidewalk are probably only 4 feet wide. You're gonna put the tree right in the middle of the sidewalk. Am I missing something there? And it's in the current code. I thought it was a change, but it's in the current code. It's on page 11, I think, maybe page 4.
Let's see here. I'm just getting to that section so I think I know what you're talking about. Minimum 4-inch.
Yeah, it's on page 4 of what you handed out to us in our packet on this top. Location of plant materials, how it's,
Location of plant materials. I wouldn't say that we've necessarily had an issue with this. Planting requires setbacks, parking areas, landscaping. Trees shall be planted at least 4 feet away from overhanging vehicles. Is that?
I think that's the intent of it, but it just says location of plant material, and then it says trees must be 4 feet from the tree to the curb. And that's great if you have a wide berm, but if you have a berm like most of the ones in the city, they're probably only 4 feet wide. You're gonna put the tree in the middle of the sidewalk.
Well, and planting strips are required to be a minimum of 5 feet in width. I know we have areas that don't necessarily meet that standard. It hasn't been an issue. I can't necessarily speak to that it might not be an issue for some. We do have the ability for waivers. Engineering department reviews some of these items when it's when it can't be accommodated on a site or can't be accommodated within a planting strip, or there is no planting strip. There's a lot of different variables that we look through in situations where we have to give special consideration, where the directors of departments do have some leeway there.
Because the way I read this, if, you know, in the two properties I own, the sidewalk is I'm sure less than 4 feet. And I wouldn't be able to put a tree in there the way I read this. Am I reading that correctly?
Sorry, I'm just not able to find the exact section that you're talking about. So I saw the
Do you know what page you're on in the packet, Charlie?
It's page 4 of 16.
What document?
and Charlie, I do think you were instrumental in creating our categorization system in our code. So if you could give me the 70, 40, 50, C3 item II dash
I'm
zero.
trying to
that would be
find it,
great.
you know, I know I would, and I'll take that responsibility.
I don't mean to put you on the spot there, but I've heard you had a hand.
It's under general landscaping standards. I'm trying to, 704050. And then it's 4. I don't know. I must have missed a sub.
Yeah, location of required plant material. So I have a site distance triangle. I have trees shall be planted at least 4 feet away from overhanging vehicles.
Yeah.
So I see what you're looking at. In the image that's attached to the section you're talking about, it shows 4 feet from tree to curb. And that is specific to item D there that says trees shall be planted at least 4 feet away from overhanging vehicles. So that has to do with like parking and where the tree is from there. I don't think how you're perceiving that this means is actually that restrictive.
Okay.
But I'm open to hearing suggestions
No,
if
it
you
just-
do.
when I looked at this, there might be somewhere else too. This is the one I found just now when I was looking for it. When I read it, the packet earlier in the week, it seemed like you couldn't plant a tree in most of the berm areas in the community. And I don't think that is the intent of what we're trying to do. So maybe just look at that.
I will certainly take a
Yeah,
look at
take a
it.
look at that.
And
I-
also, I would say in reviewing this item tonight, staff fully expects to be updating this in 6 to 9 months with our Firewise landscaping as well. I know Matt from Public Works has mentioned state programs that are coming out in regards to turf buyback programs. And so we would want to be making our code compatible with that. So this next round will not take 13 months.
The other question I have kind of is in that same berm area, you say drip irrigation, but it can't be wider than 6 feet. Again, most berms aren't more than 6 feet. Does that mean everything in the berm, whether it's grass or otherwise, has to be irrigated by a drip system?
If it's irrigated, yes. If it's a small area and what you can see around town is we have these very small turf areas that are on spray systems. And it is also watering the sidewalk. It is also running down the streets. It's highly inefficient. So that's really what that's aimed at. Small areas should not be irrigated by a spray system, but something more efficient as a drip line or subsurface. So there's some options there.
How do you use a drip line and water grass?
You don't. Don't.
Okay, that's what it seemed to me. You were eliminating grass in from the berm areas.
In the planting strip section, yes, in one of the tables, we did alter minimum streetscape requirements, which is something that ComDev reviews quite heavily. And in the planting strip. So we have removed the word turf from the planting strip. So planting strips shall include a combination of at least 2 of the following, which is trees, shrubs, native or climate adaptive grasses. So not high water use turf. Native plants, drought tolerant or low water plants, perennials or annuals. It used to say or turf. So we are trying to remove that as an option for those planting strip areas, which are really too small to have a spray device be efficient.
Okay. So the idea is to make it more water efficient in
Yes.
in those berm areas.
But again, other grass options. So not the high water use turf, but other low drought resilient grass options.
But you're not requiring people to remove their turf if it's already there.
No,
This is only new,
not yet.
not yet.
No. This is for new. and we, staff recognizes the amenity that grass serves, but we're really trying to get at those areas that aren't used. I think you all know, you all have an area in mind when you think about this, a beautiful emerald green lawn that has sprinklers going all the time, and you never see a picnic blanket on it, as an example. What's that? If you mentioned a park,
Yeah, no.
that has an exemption.
Any other questions for Hannah? Okay, this is a public hearing, correct, Carl?
It is.
All right.
Well, it's actually not a public hearing, but it's first reading, and so you generally take public comment.
Any comments from the public?
I'm not.
Any comments from the public on this ordinance? Anybody in the virtual audience? You're shaking no?
Okay.
All right, bring it back to council then for motion comments.
I will, on ordinance 2022-31, I will move to approve the code amendments to section 070, 040, 050 landscaping, screening and fencing, as well as section 070, 070, 030, all other terms defined as related to landscaping standards with the findings on page 5, and this will be the first reading.
Second.
Staff report.
Mr. Mayor, would it be appropriate to save comments until second reading? Or I just wanted to thank staff for their hard work on this. I know that they've been working on this a long time, but I appreciate it. Thank you. I seconded it, or Marco did.
I do have a question, comment, question.
Oh, you seconded, you just talked before you said it. so-
I seconded it, but then I commented. Thank you. I'm done with comments.
I'm just wondering if you want to incorporate, Hannah had mentioned possibly adding the 35-foot maximum.
I think that what we should do is, you heard a few comments, if you can bring them back to us, even some feedback on that 5,000 square foot lot, bring them back. And we will pull this, we won't have it on consent, we'll discuss as part of the second reading.
Okay.
Thank you.
For the record, I want to include the comments that Mr. Topper said in the email that I passed out, whether that be part of the record.
And will Hannah respond to some of the comments that she
I think
mentioned?
she did as she talked to.
Well, I tried to incorporate them into
Okay.
my presentation, but if you'd like me to address them specifically,
You
or
want-
I,
I heard him.
okay.
No, that's fine.
Okay, anybody have anything else? I just want them included. You had some.
Absolutely.
Like the definition of landscape architect, I don't know if you had that right or wrong, but those are some technical things. Maybe if you give them a call, we can work up between now and second reading too, so. I appreciate that. John's done a lot of work in the community of landscape.
Absolutely. And I welcome expertise in the area. So if he has some comments and I can have a chat with him specifically about his items.
Thank you again for working so hard on it.
Any further comments? Oh, question?
Sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman, yes. Counselor Wuso, yes. Counselor Dem, yes. Counselor Step, yes. Counselor Hershey, yes. It passes unanimous.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure talking to you about something other than housing. So next time, who knows what it'll be. Thank you.
All right, item number 9, ordinance 2232 yard waste diversion regulations. Matt and or Liz?
Mr. Mayor, I have a point of order on this.
Sure.
Are we going to do another presentation on this at this time? Was that the plan?
I don't think so. I could briefly just summarize what's in here and then.
Could it be brief? Because, or it could be continued because I have some issues, or I would make a motion right now to deny this. I'm sorry.
I was thinking of asking.
Okay.
Well, no, pleasure council. I mean, you guys want to have a presentation on this, if you want to have a continue, other things you want them to talk about, you want to have a discussion. Yeah. Let's have a discussion first.
That's fine.
So why don't we, oh, thank you. Why don't we, Liz, I don't, you want to just do a real brief, Carl? Yeah.
Yes.
Do a real brief 3 or 4 minute summary. We talked to us before about this. I think one of the questions that's come up, and I mentioned it before the meeting, is how does this apply to yard waste? People put in their trash, those kind of things. Those are the concerns I think some of us are hearing. So. You want Matter, this is what everyone's doing.
So I'm gonna let Liz take this one, but definitely we've heard a few things from you and a few people, things from the community. I think there are little misconceptions of what the situation is going to be. So I think a short brief on this one, and if you want to continue until the whole entire council's here to have further discussion on it, that's really your privy at this point. That's not a big deal one way or the other. It's just something we see as a benefit to the landfill, and it won't really affect how a daily person operates. It's more of a bulk user situation versus Charlie's issue or Paula's type issue with trash. So Liz will give you 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and we'll answer questions.
I can do 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah, so just really briefly.
Hold on one second.
Okay.
Tony, one of the reasons why I do it is not for us as much as the public might be interested.
Public is not in favor of this.
I know, well, let's give her 5 minutes. to explain. Thank you.
You said 3. So as we talked about before, a landfill ban is simply a tool that municipalities can use to get materials in the right place. There are certain materials that are not appropriate to be disposed of in the landfill, and a ban helps us get them to where they should be. So the reason we went with yard waste, first of all, is because 8.7% of the material going into our landfill currently is yard waste. So that's over 3,000 tons per year. That's why we went for that material first. And, I mean, it's okay. We can do 3 minutes. And, so essentially what this ordinance would do is it would apply at the point of at the landfill where trucks are dumping material. It does not apply to residents putting things in their bin at home. Okay, so this only applies, the rule kicks in if a load is dumped at the landfill that's more than 5% yard waste and the commercial company refuses to sort the material and insists on throwing it in the landfill. That is when we run into an issue. The only people we currently have issues right now with doing this are property management companies and occasionally landscape companies, but much less often because most of them are very conscientious about wanting to compost material. So that's really the gist of it. We can do questions, whatever you guys want.
If I can, because I think one of the things that
Mhm.
I think is some confusion is that there is still a place at the landfill property to take those, to divert that to. It's not that you can't go to South Canyon. It's that if you're like me and I'm hauling a trailer full of yard material, limbs, that kind of thing, it goes to a particular area. It doesn't go in the general landfill. And I think that's something that even in this presentation, we didn't really specify that. You can still take it out. There's a place for it at South Canyon.
Doesn't go into what I think you classify as the landfill face, right?
Right. It doesn't go to the general, like where you would
Yeah.
dump, your household trash. It goes to a different area in the landfill. That's what we're talking
understand
about.
Okay.
Well, for one more point, just quick picture in your mind kind of thing. If somebody brings in a 5-yard dump trailer and they're from a construction company, but they cleared trees in the morning and they cleared debris in the afternoon, they'll take the entire dump trailer and dump it in the landfill. So it'll be construction trash, and all of a sudden you'll see branches, limbs, and grass show up. You're like, you could have so easily sorted this, gotten out the construction trash instead of dumping it, opened it up, pushed out what you needed to, and then driven up to the place where we provide, and it's cheaper to put landfill or foot yard waste type things like that. So then we can put them and use them in compost. It's not trying to regulate, okay, Mrs. Smith's putting 2 bags of trash or 2 bags of leaves in here and it ends up in a huge truck. That we would not say this 5%. I mean, it would have to be a lot of people putting yard waste in that day for that truck to be counted towards this thing. It's really trying to get these companies, which is why we're going to do cardboard next, which is why we got to convince Tony this is not bad. That, hey, sorting things is not bad. Yes, it takes 5 minutes for you to do it, but you're really helping the environment, you're helping the landfill, and it's just trying to make them do it basically because they won't on their own. You can charge as much as you want to. You can charge as much for construction waste as you want to. People keep paying it. Look at Pickens County landfill. They keep raising the price and raising the price and raising the price. At some point, you just have to say, you just can't do it. So we're going to make you put it back in your trailer and go bring it to the proper spot. That's all we're doing. It's not a fine. It's not, you're just trying to get people to do the right thing.
So let me clarify.
Well, I have a comment when you're.
Sure, go ahead, Tony.
No, you go first.
No, go ahead.
Well, I don't know why Matt is singling me out. I'm a supporter of recycling, but I don't know. I prefer a carrot to a stick. I don't know why we're punishing people and being punitive. I try to sort, people try to do the right thing with their garbage, but I find that a lot of what this council does is sort of it's punitive first and it's like secondly, let's do it. And I think a lot of the reason that, Charlie, you're hearing from the public, at least I am, that people are upset with me. It's not me particularly. My yard waste guy was complaining that he had to drive to Rifle or something to the county because he couldn't go to this week. So whatever. I think people should do the right thing. We should encourage them to do the right thing, but we don't have to like punish people for doing the wrong thing. I don't think that always works. And if our streets department director is correct, that just raising the price doesn't help, what is the answer? Is it education? Is it something else? Because the punitive part doesn't seem to work. And that's why I don't support. Thank you.
Are we on comments or questions or any?
Or I guess question.
Everything. So I understand what you're saying. I get you're looking at the landscapers and those companies, construction companies. And by the way, I mix up my tree limbs with other trash and I separate it when I get up there. So I don't see why it can't happen either. I agree with the intent of this. What my concern is, there's a couple of things. One, I've already received on my billing for trash pickup. I'm not sure everybody's doing that they no longer allow yard waste in our trash cans. My concern is that they get dinged when they do get up there. At some point in time, somebody says, hey, my hauler is already saying I can't do it. But what I'm concerned about is we haven't accommodated and taken care of our community first. We're doing an RFP right now. There should be inclusion in that. I know we talked about maybe in the future it would be an inclusion, but we should include in that RFP for single hauler that they will also have yard waste pickup through the summer months like we've talked about before. I think that when you look at this tonight's packet, we've approved an electric rate increase. We've improved a water rate increase. I get conversation from my neighbors about the price of natural gas. And then all of a sudden they're looking at, well, now I have to take care of my yard waste and I have to haul it myself up there, just like I haul up my brush now a couple of times a year. So we're starting to lose that service level to our community. And that's a concern of mine. So what I'd like to do is put this off until we get a chance to kind of address how do we take care of our community and still move forward with this yard waste ban. And what is the timing in that so we can accommodate that? We do a lot of things, I think, to accommodate different audiences in our city, including our tourist community and others. But we really have to look at our next door neighbor and try to provide something for them. So I'm fine with the idea of the ban, but I think we ought to put it off till we figure out how to take care of people so that they're not going to incur extra cost and extra duress.
And I'm going to jump in. Similar thoughts, but not identical in that we at one time had the haul offs, right? Where, what is it called? Spring cleanup. And, so many people who maybe live on their own or they're getting older, maybe they don't own a truck. They use that as an opportunity to get rid of a lot of this type of waste, limbs and debris from the yard. And now we've taken that away. And then when we add this in as well, it really becomes prohibitive to people with certain lifestyles. With that in mind, I also see and value the life of our landfill. And I also know that, we have a responsibility to that. So we have these opposing truths. If we could come up with some solutions for how we can resolve that. And I know that you don't like to talk spring cleanup, but if you want to just be like, throw that back out and do this, I know we would make a lot of people happy. I say that only half jokingly. I think that there's enough people who've discussed that with us at almost every event. So if we can look at alternatives to resolve this without negatively impacting the community and still maintaining the health of the landfill, that would be my preference, which I don't think we can do this evening, which is why I would probably be supportive of a continuation until we just have a few more of these pieces together. I want that RFP to maybe include some dialogue about yard waste. How do we
does.
solve it?
I will just say it's out now and it does.
Okay,
So
okay.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
the RFP is out right now. It's published and it does contain.
Cover it, it doesn't have the I remember some of the drafts that said they were gonna do twice a month yard waste. Thanks. They were gonna do twice a month yard waste. That was one of the things we asked them to bid on, isn't that right?
So first thing, sorry, Counselor Hershey, I shouldn't have
That's
said anything.
okay.
Second thing is, yeah, it has two options built into it. One is a curbside option for composting,
Okay.
which would be yard waste, small branches, those kinds of fun things built into it. And then there's the weekend option over the summer months, which Carbondale also does.
Mm-hmm.
So we have those built into there. So hopefully people will bid on them. We're not using them as pluses or minuses in the RFP.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a piece of information that we can bring back to you when we're doing this whole entire process to say, do you think this is worthwhile or do you think this is not? And then we can break it out if we decide we want to go a different way with that. But I just want to make sure that everybody fully understands this conversation of if you take your yard clippings and put them in your 96-gallon trash can and it ends up in a trash truck, that's not the concept of this.
And I
So-
get that. I totally,
I just wanna make
thank
sure we
you,
get
thank
that
you for
concept.
clarifying.
This is
Yeah.
commercial
Yep.
haulers bringing us things that we can see could have been easily sorted
Sure.
through, just like Counselor Stepp is talking about, like I do when I go up there. I go to the metal pile, I go to the wood pile, I
Yeah.
go to the trash pile, I go to, I go. every
So
pile up
Matt-
there. So I just want to make sure we understand the concept.
Hold on one second and
Well,
let me
but
wrap up.
you- it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
So
I
if
think-
somebody still
yeah.
wants curbside pickup of some grass clippings or some branches and they throw it in their trash can, we're not nixing
Mhm.
large haulers because there's no way we can control that. It's more of the wastefulness that we can see on a daily basis from some of these other entities. It's really the crux of this conversation, I guess.
So if, for instance, a truck goes around on a Monday morning after everybody's been using and our RFP is unsuccessful in getting those curbside for yard waste, right? That doesn't happen. Will there ever be a time if we move forward on this and we don't get that other piece, could it possibly be that that hauler says to all their customers, we're going to charge you more because you put yard waste in it? That's my concern. And that's why I'm like, if we wait on this until we know a little bit more about the RFP,
Sure.
we can make that decision afterwards when we're more knowledgeable about where we are with that.
I mean, I would say if you're talking about the hauler for our single hauler
Mhm.
in town.
Yeah.
I mean, they wouldn't do that unless we specifically changed their contract to say they had to do that. So
You're not going to charge them.
Hit the landfill with a fine, so.
They're not.
No, because once you dump it out, it's all gonna get mixed together and it's probably
No matter,
less
okay.
than 5% of that truck.
Okay, so that's my big concern and I'll be transparent when I say that I've gotten lots of calls, mostly from single women in their 70s and 80s who don't own trucks, who are very sad that the spring cleanup is gone. And now they're saying, we have beautiful yards. We have worked so hard for them. We work all summer long in them, but we don't have the ability to take everything to the landfill.
Sure,
That's their
right now,
concern.
Liz is saying that the bulk overall of a truck is about
Mhm.
or yearly is about 8.7%.
Okay.
So you gotta think about one truck.
Yeah,
It's only happening maybe in the spring, the summer, those kinds of fun things. So generally speaking, it's a situation, yes, you could find them. Okay, if the whole entire truck came out as grass, you could be like, okay, not acceptable.
yeah,
But what are we gonna do? Most likely, we're gonna get the loader over there, we're gonna pick it up, we're gonna haul it over for them. Don't do that again,
okay,
because it'll probably be our hauler. If we move through with this process
Yeah.
kind of thing. It's gonna be just
Okay.
try not to do that kind of thing. But this has a very specific reason that we're asking for. 100%, we can definitely continue it. We can get some more public input on it. You can let us know what you're hearing from the public.
Mhm.
I've been hearing good things. So I guess I'm not getting the negative side of the
Okay.
conversation thus far, and it'd be good to get some of those
Yeah.
comments that we can see. So if you're hearing them or getting emails, just forward them on to us. We can kind of ponder the situation. If we can rewrite it a little bit, make it a little clearer, any of those kinds of things would be helpful.
Anything else?
Mhm.
But I'd like to get this one kind of right, because like I said, we're probably going to bring another one back to you just to have for the exact same situation with a different material. It's kind of the same conversation.
Tony?
So a commercial hauler goes to a construction site on Lake Avenue, picks up a bunch of construction waste. In addition, fills it half with yard waste. What happens with this ordinance?
Yeah, so with this ordinance, I mean, we would educate them first that they need to either make 2 runs to go to the brush pile and the trash pile, or they need to have a way to separate.
Well, let's say they do it a couple of times, then what?
well, then they'll have to pay the fee.
So
for doing
again,
that.
we're just talking like what Pitkin does, which is just more money, right?
Well, this is actually a little different than what Pickens done, but.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Marco.
Yeah, just real quick. So from what I hear is RFP first and then put this into place. But from my end of things, I wholeheartedly support this because I understand it. I used to be the guy with the 5-yard trailer that didn't segregate the stuff, and now I would because it makes sense. And I also believe this does not trickle down to the little guy. Sorry, bad term, to the homeowner, residential, everybody that. Correct. I don't think this impacts that from what I understand. And I think it's like everything else we do. We have to tell the public exactly what it is. So maybe we can detail this a little more, get the RFP in, and then come back with this and then follow up with the cardboard. That's kind of what I see.
And I think that as a council and as staff, that we always try to figure something out. So if spring cleanup's taken away, we've been working on this trash conversation. We like the idea of the weekends thing to make it easier on people. We've been opening the leaves longer. We open the trees longer. We try to keep everything kind of flowing for everyone.
And we appreciate.
And it's a little difficult to get everything timed out exactly right.
Right.
So, yeah, if you would like to wait until the RFP is back in and we have some kind of idea on it, I mean, we can do that for sure. This isn't like, this was brought up because Liz sees and the guys and ladies at the landfill see these things happening over and over again. And it's just a waste,
Yeah.
basically.
I think with
And
having the
people doing
RFP,
it Just don't care.
I think with the RFP in, we can tell the public that, hey, look,
Yeah.
it's still good. You can still throw your stuff in.
Yeah.
They take it. The price will not go up. They will always collect it. But if construction guys show up, it's a different story. I think it makes sense. And while I'm on here, it's just a tiny little plug for the spring cleanup. Let's think about how we can figure something out to bring that back to in a capacity that everybody's happy with. Everybody, you guys too, if it's possible.
It's
I
almost like
miss
St.
it.
Strawberry Days. Yeah.
I miss it.
Okay. You agree?
No, I'm just saying like, it's like a community amenity. It's like,
Yes.
people love it. It,
I know it was problematic, but
We can do place your trash on your curb day and come sort through it if you want to, kind of thing.
I know it was a problem. I understand.
yeah.
Paula, did you have anything else?
I just wanted to say my comments were not directed at you or you specifically. It was
for
just in general, like, here's the things that are going in my head. And I hope we can just fine tune this a little bit, get the RFP. And I don't know if this takes a motion to do this or.
I have one quick question for Liz. Liz, if we do continue this evening, does it have any negative ramifications on your world right now? Just, it is December. If we ask for a little bit of time,
What do you mean?
it is December. I'm guessing that yard waste is probably pretty decreased right
Uh,
now.
I mean, yeah, so
Okay.
part of the reasoning for doing this now was it would give us time to educate people before spring.
Okay,
Because we really wanted to just head off another season of people filling up the landfill
Okay.
with yard waste.
Yep.
So yeah, I would say continuing it does have a negative effect.
Okay.
To be honest.
okay. I like the honesty. Thank you.
Okay, I did.
Okay.
Anybody else? I kind of wait the end. Okay. Two questions I have. I forgot the first one. Is there a way, Carl, maybe it's to you too, is there some way to draft this, right, that would say we're hitting the commercial, not the non-commercial, or, to kind of address this concern?
I mean, I think to some extent it does that. It's just in the way you look at and read and understand the language. We can tinker a little bit with the purposes section, if you will, of how we implement this in the code. I think is probably the place to do that. Because I think a lot of what I've heard is kind of a misunderstanding of like it happens at the curbside, which it doesn't. It happens at, when it's being dumped. And so just really clarifying that in the language, I think, so we can tinker with that.
Second question that I have, I remember the other one is that what's the RP is out, when's the submission deadline? That's what I'm looking for.
January or something?
Yeah, there's questions through beginning of the next week. Brian might have.
looking it up right now when we get to my.
Let's just
Yeah, questions for next week, we'll do responses, and then the proposals, I think have to be back like mid-January, end of January kind of thing, so.
So effectively,
You know,
when
if
will
we're
we,
gonna continue this, maybe it's like the second meeting in February or something. It gives us a little time for education if we still have it. It gives some time for review of the RFPs, and we can make better
So,
recommendations or just tweak that language.
so the RFP will be back in front of us somewhere in late February? Is that?
Probably, yeah, I think, more than likely it'll be the second meeting in February. If responses are due the middle of the month, depending on how long it takes, staff to kind of review and make a recommendation on that. I'd be surprised if we were on the first meeting in February.
so the question due date's the 21st of this month. The closing date is the 20th of January.
So, yeah, we won't be back until the second meeting in February.
And the RFPs are limited to 15 pages. So if we get even 3 or 4 of them, it won't take that long to go through to kind of have to piecemeal through and see what we've got out of them.
I just one comment and turn, Mark, I want to comment again. My concern is, I know we're looking at, we have to expand the landfill. We've got the area, but we got to get the expansion. There's a cost to that. And that's the problem, because if we have to pay that cost to expand the landfill, we have to increase other rates to pay for that. I mean, it has to come out somewhere. And so that's my concern, but it sounds like maybe a short delay might be in effect. Marco?
Yeah, thank you. So all that has been heard and said. I would like to move to continue ordinance 2022-32 to the first meeting in March. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
Move the motion to move the consideration ordinance 22-32 to the first meeting in March. And that was seconded by Ingrid. Any discussion on that motion?
You got plenty of direction?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Call the question. Go ahead.
And any comments that you haven't getting from the public, please let us
Yeah.
forward them to us so we can hear them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
And I want to also comment, I appreciate this. I recognize, I use it a lot because I've been doing these remodeling jobs, and I recognize how fast that thing is filling. It's just amazing since I started the project about a year ago, how much higher we are in that phase. So I understand the fill, so.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Charlie, I got to read for the record. That's all right. Yes, by Mayor Pro Tem Willman, yes by Council Russo, yes by Councilor Dem, yes by Councilor Stepp, yes by Councilor Hershey. It passes unanimous.
And Carl, you will take a look at that language when we bring it back. So
All right. Unanimously.
we are to council comments.
How are we at council comments?
Huh?
I missed some.
We had announcements.
Oh, announcements.
That, the idea of that was, the last meeting was, if there's things like there's gonna be a meeting or something like that. Okay. Well.
I want to take this time to announce that, to allow other people to consider this, that I've decided not to run for a second term for, city council. So I will be here for the next 4 months, of course, to continue to work hard on the things that we work on. What I would like to ask though, and consider here at tonight's meeting is looking at a increase in compensation for city council. I feel that I look at this group of people here at the dais and the amount of time and effort they put in meetings above and beyond city council meetings. All of us are involved in different boards. We travel to go to places to participate in regional meetings. A lot of us cover our own costs for those kind of things. And the compensation level here, I think, acknowledges that we put work in, but it doesn't really compensate for the time and energy that goes into this. And one of my reasons for not looking at a second term is realizing that I have lost time for myself. And it's not a selfish thing. It's just realizing when all of us lose this much time for ourselves, putting in the effort that we need to take care of what this responsibility is. There's a value to that. And there's also a respect for that. And I acknowledge that all the time I get thanked in the community for doing this service, but when we look at things that what we do for the staff here, what we do when we look at the city, and the things that we do to make sure that we have the best possible compensation going in and projects going on, I think we have to look at that for city council as well. So what I'd like to ask is that we direct staff to compare what communities similar to ours are for compensation and bring it back to us in end of January meeting, second January meeting, so that this group can discuss what might be an adequate level of increase to pay for city council and for the mayor.
Couple of things. Carl, is that doable as far as getting that feedback? And secondly, if council is by ordinance, so, right?
Yeah, it is by ordinance and it needs to be adopted adopted and in place prior to the next city election to have it apply to those of you who would be being elected or re-elected for the first time. That pay increase would apply to you. Everybody else would take effect at their next term, or if you're termed out, you just would never see that pay increase.
Okay.
Kind of how the Constitution.
Mhm. 27.
Any other comments on, first of all, before I say anything else, I've already passed this on to Paula in private, but the dedication that Paula has shown to this council and her time that she has spent both here and in other boards and commissions is extraordinary, and it's been a joy to work with you, and I'm going to look forward to the next 4 months, and hopefully we'll keep you engaged in some way after that. So we'll try to hook you in somehow.
Oh, I'm sure that I'll find a commissioner or board going,
There you
I
go.
gotta do that.
Thank you so much. Ingrid.
Oh, I was gonna say the same, that Paula, I have so enjoyed serving with you. And I thank you for all the hard work you put in and the questions that you ask and your very thorough perspective on so many of the issues that we face. And I will miss having you sit to my right. Mhm. Yeah.
Did you have other council comments? Tony?
I wanted to thank Paula too. I ran with her and I remember this is a difficult job. It is, what did you call it, Ingrid, a time suck? So I would like to make a motion to amend the city charter to reduce the council from 7 to 5. Can I do that? No, I can't. But I certainly would make a motion to, and we'll have more time, just to thank Paula for her service. One really quick thing, this intersection out here, right here, where you have so many county and city employees who cross the street. If Matt or somebody in streets could look at a flashing stoplight, someone's going to die and a pedestrian's going to get hit. If people don't stop, particularly going east on 8th Street, but even coming from Pitkin, it's Picton and 8th. So, and there's 3 crosswalks and nobody stops. And people will slow stop or California stop. There's a big electrical box across the street, which is in a perfect position to block drivers' view of pedestrians as they leave. And all the parking is over there. And, the county building is right there. So maybe we could look at making that intersection a little more safe. Thank you.
Jessica, is that something that you could just, I know you have other things to do, but if.
I know there's a lot.
I know there's a cost to that.
There is, back in 2017.
Could you did, yeah.
Sorry, I put you on the spot, Jessica.
And I'm sorry to
No,
put you.
she's doing her impersonation of Matt.
Yeah.
Steve's in the back of the room.
Back in 2017, when we put the one in at 10th, I think that was about $10,000. I'm not sure what the one,
How much? I'm sorry.
10,000. So certainly costs have gone up since then. I'm not sure what the one in front of Valley View cost. We'll get both of us up here.
We trained Matt.
But we just had a meeting about 8th Street design today to try to finalize those plans and start pursuing funding. So it could be an interim solution. It's just, the intersection might change based on that plan. So.
Okay.
Yeah, the ones in front of Valley View are just solar battery. They're really cheap. They work a little bit. The ones at 10th Street are wired in, long life LEDs, and they're probably the more effective option of what Councilor Hershey's talking about. So we can look at that and just see what the costs are, and what the effectiveness is. They worked at 10th Street for quite a while. I live off of 10th Street, and people now continue just to drive through that intersection also. And it's hard. It's code and it's police enforcement. It's a lot of different levels of it. We redid that intersection and narrowed it up to make it a little bit safer a couple of years ago. Because the county was like, it's too low, too wide. So we've been kind of improving, but we can look at it.
Thank you.
Okay, and Ingrid, maybe you could just, Transportation Commission can
We
take
can-
that up at their meeting. if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ingrid, and
Go ahead,
to
Ingrid,
Matt.
something else?
Yeah, I had one other thing. Just a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everybody and a reminder that so many of our departments don't get the holiday time off that we do. So that means that our fire chief and all of his people, our police chief and all of his hardworking folks, but also those in the street department, so thank you, water, sewer, thank you, Matt.
Electric.
What's that? Electric. Yeah, there's so many departments that work all through the holidays and we are so grateful. And we thank you so much.
Basically echo all the comments that I heard. I'm gonna save mine for you for April or whenever your last meeting is. So, but happy holidays to everybody. Thank you.
Oh, Noel.
A couple of,
How you say it in French?
Pardon?
Joanne.
Good later.
couple of things. First of all, after consulting with several people, I'd love to have you all over, but given the current COVID spike
RSV.
and everything else, it's a great idea. It's a bad timing. So I'm canceling tonight. I hate to do it, but I even cleaned my house, but No, I don't think it's a good idea. So,
Bring the puppy over to say.
well, I would love, bring your puppy over anyway. I'd love to see
Okay.
the puppy. So, anyway, I apologize for that. The second thing in on a more substantive level, I sent out to everybody the list of bills and things being considered by CML, and there was a significant discussion about the matter about the last meeting. And I think that the position that we were advocating, not on I put this on the apartments, I think is being looked at again, and they're not promoting it as heavily as they were before. However, given the legislature that currently exists, last year we promoted a real estate transfer tax. And I wonder, is that something the council would like me to present to the CML Policy Committee? Because we got to get a legislator and legislators to promote that. And that's an amendment of the Tabor. But, I think that the climate, particularly with given the ballot questions last year, is right to try to maybe pursue that again. That would give us another avenue to help pay for affordable housing in Glenwood if they could give us the authority to do that. So if that's consensus, anybody?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, okay,
I'm good.
I'll do that. I talked to, Hannah?
Hi. I just wanted on that last note that you mentioned, we do have a consultant working on funding mechanisms for affordable housing. A real estate transfer tax is in the memo and they've been researching that. So happy to make that part of your presentation. Just wanted to mention. that.
Sure, if you could give me that information, it'd be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it requires an amendment of Tabor to allow us to do it. It's a significant, it's got to go to the voters, so.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and following up on that, just so you know, CAST is also pursuing exactly that as well. And are targeting trying to get something on the ballot in the fall of 2023 on that issue to amend Tabor to allow for the real estate transfer tax. Paul Weiser, the manager over in Mountain Village, as well as Eric Heil, the manager in Avon, are kind of taking the lead on that for CAST.
Okay. Next thing is I had a request from someone that wants to put a four-way stop at Blake and A Street. I presented it to Matt and Terry, and they're having some discussions. There may be some reasons not to do that, but I just, they're going to take a look at that and get back to me on that issue. And the last thing is Diane Reynolds asked me to ask the city staff to please make it a policy of the city that to take a minute, to go slow, follow the speed limits. And I think that's a reasonable request. It's something that we all think is important. And I think we should encourage our drivers and our vehicles to follow the speed limits. So when people see us, they don't see a city vehicle going on the street, 25 miles at 35, and it doesn't set a good example. So I wanted just to bring that to attention. And finally, I'd like to say best holiday wishes to everybody for the next couple of weeks. We'll see you back in January. And we're going to got a couple other issues, but I want to thank staff in particular all the staff for everything they do all the time. We either take the grief or we get the credit, but you guys do all the work and we really appreciate it. So I want you all to know how much I think all 7 of us, even those that are not here, appreciate what you all do every day, except for Ryan.
Hey, Ryan.
And to the 6 counselors, I appreciate you.
Oh, I just want, I know you got a couple more things. Just don't forget that letter.
No, I got it. I've
Okay.
correspondence. Steve Boyd, if you're still there, anything from the city manager?
I think I'm doing the city manager's report.
Well,
Yeah,
I will, real quickly, I will say that, and then I'll turn it over to Carl, but we extended an offer to somebody that was accepted to be our HR assistant. So we filled that position and we got Ryan some help with somebody named Wendy that started last week. So 2 more successful hires. We're getting pretty close to being fully staffed.
Good work.
Ryan needs a lot of help.
Yes, he does. Indeed. Sorry, Carl, go ahead.
Fine, Councilman.
Get well, Steve. Carl.
All right, couple of things. One, it's timely with Paula and gonna miss you on council, so I appreciate and we'll torture you for 4 more months. Should always say those things as you're dropping the mic and running, but that's beside the point. Every committee assignment gets assigned to Paula from here on out. January 3rd packets will be available if you are interested in running for council or running again for council or all of those things. So petition packets are available January 3rd. Matt is going to ask you for a letter of support for something that has acronyms that I don't know what it stands for. So I'm going to make him stand up and talk about that. You ready? Yeah.
Sorry, we would have thrown this into the packet, but it was kind of a last minute thing. We want to apply for an RREO grant, which I can explain to you what it is, but it's basically what we built the recycle center with. It's the same grant. We need a letter of support from the municipality. It's for the landfill to buy a grinder, which we rent every single year to grind up furniture and mattresses and those kinds of fun things to use in composting. So it's just a letter of support that we would like the mayor to sign, if that is okay with everybody on council.
Move that we issue a letter of support.
Second.
Or for the.
We have a generic letter of support. We just need to fill in a few names and he can sign it, or Ryan can sign it for him, or however that works.
Second.
So moved by Marco, seconded by Tony to provide letter of support for that proposal. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Well, anything else, Carl?
I think that's it, other than the
Yeah.
letter.
So under correspondence, you all received from Ryan earlier today, a request by Mountain Family, thank you, because they help the Mountain community. Mountain Family to support their request. Carl, would you and I talked about this, but for the record, explain what they're asking.
Yeah. So they are asking for a letter of support from the city for their application underneath the Health Services Resource Administration Program. Garfield County has been designated as a health professional shortage area. And so through that designation and being a designated enterprise zone in Garfield County, if they're accepted into the program, it will mean that donors to Mountain Family would get a 25% tax credit on that donation. So it makes it much more attractive to a donor to commit funding to them. So they're asking for a letter of support from the city for that application for that status. So.
Excuse me. I would support that. I mean, do you need a motion to
Yeah.
support that? I would make a motion to support the letter to Mountain Family, support for Mountain Family.
Second by Marco. Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Anything else?
I just want to wish the mayor good health and hope he's feeling
Here,
better. I
here.
know he's listening.
Yes,
I'm
We all-
certain he's listening.
and we hope Shelley's enjoying her warm.
Well,
I was gonna say, I hope Shelley's having a drink right now.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second, and any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Happy
Passed.
holidays.